Welcome back to the second video of me attempting not to burn down my kitchen as I try to recreate the food from the glorious world of anime. In my last video, I attempted to recreate the traditional Japanese bento, which could have been better, could have been worse. Generally, just pretty happy I didn't actually burn anything. This time around, I've opted to go for a more modern dish that is still seen in quite a fair few anime, but has a little more difficulty towards it. This dish is found across a large array of anime, but you'll probably most likely to recognize it from a lot of animes that showcase venues such as maid cafes or a lot of home cooking, and that dish is the Omu Rice omelet. This dish showed up pretty often in a lot of the animes I've watched and seemed to have a large array of different interpretations and recipes that I could look into, such as the curry omu rice in Shogeki no Soma or the heavy tomato sauce coma-inducing omu rice shown in Charlotte. Traditionally, the omu rice omelet is mostly a homey comfort food that will often just be made by families to eat at home. The humble dish as such has been reinterpreted in a number of ways, which is evident through a lot of the anime and how it portrays omu rice. So to understand where the humble Japanese omu rice omelette comes from, we need to first look back to around the turn of the 20th century, when Japan was expanding due to its increasing global presence. With this expansion, Japan was now more exposed to Western cuisine, and as such, Western cooking quickly became a source of inspiration for Japanese chefs. By reimagining American classics using local staples, Japanese chefs living during this period gave rise to a subgenre of cooking called yoshoku, or Western food. One of the most popular interpretations of yoshoku is omu rice. This take on an American dinner-style omelet features fluffy eggs wrapped around a mound of Japanese fried rice, sometimes fried with ketchup. The whole dish is garnished with more ketchup, brown gravy, or demi-glaze. So now, armed with my newfound knowledge and far too high expectations reinforced by the animes I've watched, it is time to attempt cooking this common homemade Japanese dish. This dish will basically be a very common, more dumbed down version once again of the original dish, making it easier for me to retain ingredients and generally apply it to my highly incapable cooking skills. The omu rice will be just a tomato-based rice with chicken and vegetables, with then a thin egg omelet around the outside, as you will see. Okay, we have finally made it, and the world is a lot later than it was when I started this. It has been a long, incredibly tiring process.
I was dying earlier today, and then I died. Now I'm dead.
As I go in, I am optimistic and kind of funny. It'll just fill out. Yes, a little better than what my expectations were at. This is pretty good. For a meal that probably took me far longer than it should take any normal human to cook, I feel like it's probably worth it. think I definitely haven't really had something like this before, but if I had to say something that it reminded me of, it would remind me of fried rice, I suppose. Just because it has the rice in there, it has the egg in there, different kind of vegetables and everything. And then it's just got a lot more egg. The overall process was worth it. I completely understand those little anime guys and why they were falling head over heels for this amazing food. So my cooking process definitely wasn't as flamboyant and mesmerizing as it was in the somewhat overzealous anime interpretation, but nonetheless, I did eventually create omelette food stuff, which I'm pretty damn proud of. So my final thoughts on what has been a cluster of failures and minor successes since I started this project over a month ago. The first major thought is that anime characters, they know their stuff. And the often flamboyant food that I observed in a lot of anime was almost always a dramatized version of the real thing, with only a number of animes that I watched portraying a more realistic interpretation of Japanese food, which could simply come down to the kind of audiences particular animes were attempting to appeal to, or to a greater extent could be a reflection of what Japanese media has become over time. The second major epiphany I had whilst conducting this project was that Japan's history and these dishes were often intertwined, and at times these dishes could be used as a cultural artifact to represent Japan as it was when these dishes were created, like with the Omu Rice, for example, as it represented a point in time when Japan was a lot more susceptible to the global flow of cultures, and therefore open to new cultural phenomenon, which I think is interesting, as it can suggest that commonplace food that is taken for granted and reinterpreted by popular culture will often have significant ties to a culture's history and customs and can provide invaluable insight into a culture. So that is it for my anime food project. I hope you enjoyed following along as I explored cooking Japanese food for the first time and ruining my kitchen for the 100th time. If you're interested in a little background information and behind the scenes of what happened during the project, feel free to check out my blog, which will be linked in the description. But with that, that is a wrap. Bye!